Perion Sciences is a small 13-person biotech company in the Research Triangle Park. Our focus is on developing new therapies for unmet medical needs for respiratory disease and ophthalmology, with a special emphasis on diseases like cystic fibrosis and COPD trials. At Perion, the preclinical research team includes 5 people. We have a small laboratory at the company where we do some of the really core and fundamental research. We collaborate extensively with universities, including the University of North Carolina. We also spend a lot of time writing small business grants and working on fundraising to make sure that we keep continuity with our project. So I did my undergraduate work at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. My last couple of years, while I was focusing in on biochemistry, I worked at a very small startup company that was a 5-person company in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and really enjoyed the experience of being in a small biotech company. And for me, it really solidified that when I went to graduate school, that's what I ultimately wanted to do, was to go back to biotech. So I went to the University of North Carolina for graduate school in the Department of Cell Biology. When I finished graduate school, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I made the decision to do a postdoctoral fellowship with Dr. Richard Boucher, who's the head of the Cystic Fibrosis Center at UNC. He's also somebody that has started several biotech companies in the Research Triangle Park, and when I talked to him, we agreed that I would do a research project that had a strong industry collaboration. Well, things were going very well there in the lab. I ended up getting a call from an old colleague who was a friend of my graduate PI, who was hired in at Coca-Cola to start a biology lab there. So it'd be the first biology lab at Coke. So he essentially called me and asked me if I was interested in coming down and interviewing for the position. So I ended up taking the job at Coca-Cola, and something that I learned from the experience is that your contacts and your network is critically important for finding jobs. However, you're never really sure where those connections are going to come from. After a year at Coca-Cola, I was contacted by my postdoc advisor, Dr. Boucher, who had a company, Perion Sciences, that had recently done a big deal for one of their pulmonary drugs with a larger pharma company. And the company, Perion, was looking to expand into a number of different therapeutic areas, and he asked me to come back to Perion. So I think one of the skills that helped prepare me for my career as much as anything was learning how to collaborate well in science as a graduate student. As a student, I figured out that if I could get a lot of good labs involved in the research project that I was working on, that not only could I learn a lot more, but I could also be much more efficient and get a lot more done. And it turns out that this is a really critical skill in industry, that the emphasis really is people working in teams. At Perion, and another factor which was important for me was actually having direct experience in the research area that I'm studying now. Although the type of research I do today and the studies that I'm working on are different than the specific research I did as a graduate student or a postdoc, it certainly was very related and helped prepare me for that. One of the things that I really like about a small company like Perion is also the opportunity to get to see a lot of different aspects of what goes on in drug development, in translational research. So although my core focus is on the research side, I also get to have a lot of involvement in clinical studies and in partnering discussions and a lot of the other activities of the company. So I also really enjoy being involved in research projects that have the potential to directly impact the lives of patients and address unmet medical needs. And, also with that, for me on a very personal level, I love the science that we do at the company. I really enjoy reading papers, being involved in designing experiments, setting up collaborations with a lot of outstanding labs, looking at raw data. We write a lot of grants here too. I really enjoy that as a way to focus on the project and the science. Although I don't spend a lot of time at the bench, I still have the opportunities to go back in the lab every now and then and do some experiments that I really enjoy to do. But overall, staying engaged in the science is why I chose this career path from the start, and very fortunate to be able to stay very closely involved with it as my career has progressed. My advice is to start thinking about what you want to do as early as you can, appreciating that a career path is really an evolution, but it never hurts to put yourself into a position that will help you downstream from, again, choosing where you want to do your graduate training, where you're going to do your postdoctoral training, and really making sure that those things are all in alignment with what your ultimate career goals are. I think it's also really important to remember that you have a lot of people as a student or as a postdoc that are there to support you, and that includes the direct people that you work with, including the students in your lab or former students and postdocs, your advisors, as well as other services offered by the university. When I was applying for my job at Coca-Cola, although I had a good personal contact in that helped me kind of get my foot in the door with an interview, I also had to go through a very unfamiliar interview process at Coke that was a very formal one. So at that time, I went and talked to Dara in the Office of Postdoctoral Services, who really gave me a lot of help with preparing for that type of interview. So that I went there, I felt very confident about that, and it certainly helped a lot. I think it's important to keep in mind that the people around you may be the ones helping you, and building those relationships now and maintaining them after people go their separate ways is always really beneficial.